Hi guys, today I'm going to talk to you about how to get an offer to study modern and medieval languages at Cambridge. So, in this video I'm going to talk you through the step-by-step process according to Cambridge's most recent 2023 undergraduate application process video, which I've linked down below. And I'm going to talk you through my overarching principles of success in securing an offer in modern and medieval languages at Cambridge at the end. So, without further ado, we'll get started. Good luck, I believe in you, go and smash this. Firstly, choose your course. Choose your course carefully. Ideally by January of your first year of A-levels, which can be called Year 12 or Level 6. What is MML? So MML at Cambridge is a course where you have to do 2 languages as opposed to Oxford and some other West Group universities. And you have to study, of course, the language, but also you get to study history, most importantly literature, some film, potentially even some art, potentially some philosophy or a little bit of linguistics. But the main component on the cultural side is, of course, literature as the traditional base of language study and higher language study in the UK. You have to make sure that this is a course you really want to do and are passionate about as the first step in the application to any course at Cambridge. So definitely look at the Cambridge website, the faculty website, the Modern Medieval Languages website, the college website, so any college you're interested in, be it Trinity College, Jesus College, Selwyn, all of them will have a specific page for your course for MML. The unofficial prospectus, this is run by the Students' Union and is a helpful source of information from the student's perspective. Not the highest authority, but very useful. And also day in the life YouTube videos from regular YouTubers like me to try and fully understand how the course is run and what you'll be doing day to day. They are appealing and they do try to sell to you, but try to really make sure that you get down to the nitty gritty of what the course is before, if you're like someone like me, who likes an emotional attachment to the work before falling in love with the course. At Cambridge, if you're doing well in your A-levels, there will almost certainly be a course for you. But if you completely disagree on the course structure, but not the actual content, I'd jokingly say, try Oxford. Choose a second step, listed in the Cambridge, the undergraduate process video, is choose a college out of the 29 colleges available for undergraduates, or make an open application. This is really important. A college is a Cambridge location or mini campus where you live, socialise and of course work and study, particularly during your undergraduate studies. I would advise against open applications because you're leaving things very much up to chance and up in the air. This may be controversial, but the number of spaces a college has to offer students will likely affect your likelihood of success. Trinity, for example, is a good option because it has a large cohort and distributes a lot of students to the pool. Check the application statistics, but focus on the number of places rather than the probability of people getting in. And I'll link those application stats down below if I can. Because lots of people are trying to play this game, and to be honest, the numbers are likely to be skewed for any college with very high probability next year. So the quality of applicants, I think, will be quite similar across all the colleges. Most people will have an A star and 2 A's predicted or above, and that's quite a narrow range compared to the potential A levels you get anywhere from an A star to an E, or IB anywhere from 45 to 41, probably 42. So choose somewhere with a good number of places, ideally 8 for MML, or if not, or even better, 12 for example. You should normally find this information on the course websites, on specific colleges' websites. Then you can also choose based on these quite important factors for me, such as endowment. The amount of money a college has will likely ensure you have slightly better experience. The Tompkins table, which is a way where colleges are ranked according to academic success. Facilities like en-suites. And then other things which are perhaps less important but could be important to you, and so definitely go for it and choose based on that. Amenities, such as one college, I think perhaps Christ has a swimming pool, and maybe the alumni network. The alumni network will be broadly similar or the same across all Cambridge colleges, but some colleges are definitely known or definitely do have better alumni. So if that's important to you or relevant to your career, definitely look at that. Your UCAS application, dun dun dun, where everyone's been talking to you probably for the last year if you've just finished your year 12 and you're starting year 13. It must be sent off at least by the 15th or 16th of October. The most important parts, apart from your academic record, which are your GCSEs and A-levels mainly, if you study in the UK, in England specifically, are your personal statement, which is now broken down into 3 questions, and school reference, and maybe the question about what you've done to prepare for this application. Personal statement. So you must read at least in the summer holidays, if not in the entirety of year 12, foreign language literature in your target languages, and English. History, if you're interested in history, or watch films, ideally both if you're interested in both. You can also definitely, to improve how your personal statement is actually written, watch some really useful videos about how to answer the 3 questions. For example, I know there's a really great tutor or lecturer from Jesus College, Oxford, who does some great videos on the personal statement. All the Cambridge colleges have one video or another on the personal statement. You might have to do some hunting on which videos are most relevant to MML, but I know Downing College did a really good video at the time. Now, in my time, the personal statement was 4,000 characters of free-flowing text, which were able to portion any way you wished. Now, the personal statement has been changed, in my opinion, for the better, into 3 questions that allow you to highlight what universities are looking for. But what different types of universities are looking for is different. And for Cambridge, what they're looking for is a heavy weighting on super-curriculars. So why do you want to study this course or subject? And what else have you done to prepare outside of your education, and why these experiences are useful is a really good way to highlight those super-curriculars evidences. Cambridge say that you should not speak in an overly lengthy way about your school curriculum, so please be brief with that middle question. Focus more on why do you want to study this course or subject, and what else have you done to prepare outside of your education, and why are these experiences useful, to evidence your claims about that you definitely want to do the subject with your super-curriculars that you have done. For instance, if you're really motivated and you say at the beginning of your personal statement, I'd love to study German, for instance, at university, because I'm fascinated by 20th century German literature. The next thing you don't say is, I'm fascinated by late 60s film, for instance. You cite an example, maybe, that you studied in class. No. Ideally, you should then weave in something that's relevant, a relevant piece of early 20th century literature that you might have read. For example, a piece by Kafka, or if you're talking about the whole 20th century, maybe Thomas Mann. And these books that you've read, and then what you have to say about them, your reflections, really evidence your claim that you're passionate about the subject. And really what Cambridge wants to see is evidence that you're interested in the subject and are willing to engage with it in an intellectual way, which just means you're able to read books, distill their arguments, summarise them, distill their arguments, and use these arguments to talk about the text, or talk about how we interpret history, or how we interpret a film. Cambridge do specify on the website not to include lots of extra information about extracurricular activities, because for them it will not increase your chances of getting a Cambridge offer. Extracurriculars for Cambridge are any non-academic activities that are not related to a chosen course. Cambridge say the best personal statements are those with a pattern and logic to them. They're building blocks, they're built up to a strong conclusion of why you are the best fit for your course. These building blocks, this pattern and logic, comes from thinking about the connections between what you've read and watched. For example, you might have watched Das Leben des Anderen, so the lives of others in German, but you might have also watched a film about, about East Germany by a research project. You could then link these two by saying, for instance, you've talked about Das Leben der Anderen, and you can say your reflections on this are that the importance and the sort of terrifying level of surveillance over the East German lives now made you interested in looking more deeply and in a more academic fashion about what it was really like to be East German. And then you talk about the other film that you might have watched from an academic source and what it tells you about life in East Germany. should really focus on what's new that you've learned, what did I get from it that was interesting, and how did it lead me to explore something new. So, and of course a strong conclusion where you say, humbly, not in an arrogant way, why you would be the very best fit for your course. Redraft as many times as you can, 1 million times almost, I'm joking there, but not so much it's robotic. Ideally, have a few trusted teachers look at it, most ideally, I guess, with an Oxbridge or Ross Group background. But if that's not possible, an organisation like Zero Gravity may be able to help. Then the second most important part of your UCAS application, in my opinion, apart from your academic record, which includes your predicted A-level grades and GCSEs, is your school reference. So keep your teachers informed of what you've done and try to have a good relationship with them. If you don't have a system at my school, like it was at my school for writing references, speak to the teacher in charge of writing references about your case, or if you can't, try and get your parents' email if that's possible. This should be a case or instance with a student-teacher partnership. A few years ago, Cambridge may have said that all the students they get are strongly recommended by their school. I think Trinity College would have said that on their website for MML. So you really want your school to be behind you, and if they're not, that's okay. You can still do it. But if they can be on the side, if they can be aware of how they can best support you, and even maybe your goals to go to Cambridge, then that's brilliant. So the reference can include a practical list and sentence form, or you could include in your personal statement. So of course, pick the very best things that fit together in a logical argument to put in your personal statement. But anything that falls just outside of it would be really good. We would love to be in your personal statement. Get your teachers to put in your reference. Or anything that's important but isn't quite as important as what goes into your personal statement, you can also ask your teachers to put that in your reference as an example of something you've explored outside of the classroom. Then the next thing Cambridge advised in the new orange video is to check the admission assessment arrangements, ideally in September. This is key. For MML, as of 2024, so 2 years ago or last year, they're college administered, so you don't have to book them yourself. And when you get to the interview stage, if you're invited to interview, the college will arrange with you how it's going to be carried out. They are also slightly later, but they are slightly less well known by schools than other tests for STEM, for example, tests for STEM. So tell your school, you might be off on that day and start preparing. Ideally before September, but if you haven't, start in earnest in September. More on preparation later in the video. Then there's an additional form for Cambridge where the deadline is normally around 20th October. It's called the My Cambridge application. This is an additional form where you confirm and supplement the personal information that Cambridge has on you, including your photograph picture. So you might want to upload a nice one because it will follow you for however long you live your young undergraduate Cambridge life. So pick your best picture if you can. And it's importantly where you have a Cambridge specific personal statement. Now, Cambridge say it is optional, so don't repeat. And I'm reading between the lines here, what's in your personal statement? But you should have things that, that confirm your interest in your personal statement. You perhaps have read on a slightly later day after the 15th or so October deadline that back up your claims by saying, here, this is what I've read, this is cool, this is interesting, this might be what we want to explore at an interview. And for example, with the Cambridge specific personal statement, this is where you can talk specifically about why you want to apply for Cambridge. If you do that in your personal statement, other universities may get a bit snippy about that. But if you do it here, then Cambridge know it's you and them alone that you're talking to. So, if you applied to German everywhere else, say, but to German and Spanish at Cambridge, you can speak about your Spanish degree here, as well as your genuine reasons for Cambridge, why you really want to go to Cambridge. You can include procedure, but that shouldn't be the only reason for doing so. Yeah. So, in addition, one last thing I wanted to add is contextual information here is relevant and really important. So, if for any reason your teachers have been out of school at any point, or the teaching has been compromised at your school, it's always good to add that in. It won't disadvantage you anyway, but it will allow Cambridge to see you on a level playing field via the other candidates. And in addition, when Cambridge say what have you covered in class, and we'll cover up until that point, be honest, because perhaps I'd like to pick the most recent things you've done, because they'll give you the best chance of performing on the day. Then for 6, submit your written work and take admissions assessment in November. You are likely to have to submit written work to study MML at Cambridge. Your college will let you know if you have to. You do either 1 or 2 pieces in an A-level language. So 2 pieces, you're studying 2 A-level languages which you intend to continue at Cambridge. 1 piece in your A-level language if you're only studying 1 MFL language, and another piece in English. This is where it's important to pick a good writing subject as your third A-level perhaps, but if that's not the case, you can always submit an essay from any discipline really, including an economics essay, and as long as that essay both essays should ideally be essays to exam-style essay questions marked as standard of your A-levels. This is because Cambridge look both at the stat quality of your work and the standard to which you're being pushed or the level of difficulty. As for the admissions assessment, as I've said, you'll get an invite from your college to sit it, and they'll email you about the arrangements, but it's so important to practice, at least from September. Practice, practice, practice makes perfect. This is the most important part. If you do nothing else, practice. Practice and use your time wisely. And when you practice, I would say it'd be really great to get a teacher on board with you to practice with you. So you can spend a little time each week if you're able to sit with a teacher or a tutor if you have access to one. I know not everyone does. Just talk through the past paper questions which they have online. If you search modern medieval languages assessment, they'll definitely have practice questions which you can talk through with a teacher, plan your answers, and then write them timed and send them in, ideally for the same teacher or another teacher to mark. Now, on to the interviews. This is a really important part of the application. Some say, or it's rumoured to be the most important part. It's very important if you've done really well and made a strong application to finish the excellent first impression you've made with Cambridge and to do really well at this application to prove that you are good enough to be offered a place at Cambridge. If the other areas of your application are slightly lacking, for instance your personal statement was slightly weaker than the field that was invited to interview, although of course you got invited to interview, so well done and congratulations. Or your A-level grades, British grades, just on the boundary of what's acceptable, or GCSE grades are okay but could be better, this is your chance to prove yourself and shine that you could really work well and study well in the Cambridge system of supervisions. So, for interviews, reach out to every resource available, including teachers, any Oxbridge or Cambridge alumni you know, school support like the Oxbridge programme or the Top Achievers programme, which I'll talk more about slightly later, or Zero Gravity. The Top Achievers programme is an amazing programme run by a really dedicated programme director who offers school support mainly to state schools and non-selective schools to help people get into university, Ross Group universities, Oxford and Cambridge, and top medical and dental schools. She also does private work with private students, which you can find out more about on her website, which I will definitely link below. It's absolutely amazing, really, really helpful. She was able to help me with the aspects of my application, which were really important, which were choosing a course. So I didn't know initially that I wanted to do German at university. I thought it would just be language, it would be boring, but I didn't know that I would get to study history and a lot more. And now I'm actually doing a German course. I'm finding that there's so many more pieces of grammar and vocab and all these things I didn't know about German before, even on the modern German language side. In addition, when it comes to school programs, it's always amazing if you could ask your school if she could come on board. And one of her success stories is that when she was working with an inner city London school, who initially had 40% of their students progress to university in around 2012, the next year when she came back to help them, the number of students progressing to university went up to almost 90%, if not 100. And she regularly is successful in getting around 70% of students of the schools she works with into Russell Group universities, including Oxford and Cambridge, as well as medicine or dental schools, top medical or dental schools in the UK. So if you're interested in working with her, I'll link her website down below. In addition, you can also reach out to support like Zero Gravity, which supports students who don't feel they get the support from their schools, especially if they go to a non-selective or a state school. And it can be very helpful to get advice from a mentor who's been there and done that, has gone to Cambridge before. Arrange every mock interview you can, even if you don't feel entirely ready, or you think the person giving you the interview doesn't know enough about Cambridge. Whatever it is, the practice will help. Show up and do your best for mock interviews, as every interview helps. In addition, watch Cambridge example interviews. They're really helpful and they give examples of the kind of teasers they might throw at you, even if it's just medicine. It's medicine, it's biology, it's a different course, but it'll show you a flexible way you're expected to think, and the answers, the questions you're expected not to laugh at, but to go, woo, and in an intellectual anticipation that you want to answer these questions because you're a good fit to study at Cambridge. To prepare for interviews, I would definitely say to go through your notes on your log, make sure you know what's in your personal statement inside out, because that's the beginning, and then practice when it comes to mock interviews. Practice the key basic questions about why you want to do this course. You might not get asked that, but understanding your reasoning for wanting to do a course will help you to be clear about what you're doing and your purpose, which you can weave into your answers. And also practicing more out there questions about, aspects of language, about the grammar of a poem, about analysis of a text, which you would definitely have to do in the interview, almost certainly. And also, any question they may throw at you, any practice you can get for as many angles and as many different people as you can is really helpful. Then mindset. This mindset part for interviews is so important. So the first thing I'd like you to remember is Cambridge want you to shine. They want to get the best out of you. I know it can be difficult to believe that, especially if you've come from a school where not everyone believes in you, your teachers don't always believe with you. Fair enough. That wasn't my case. I was really lucky on that, but if that is the case for you, or you feel that your parents don't necessarily have your back, remember to believe in yourself, that Cambridge want you to do your very best and do it for you. In addition, do your thing, do it your way. When it comes to, not in the interview, but when it comes to being around Cambridge and interacting with students around you, do things your way and be yourself. So I didn't really talk to anyone when I went to Cambridge for my interview, except for friendly greetings, as I wanted to be in that zone. Other people might have wanted to network and chat with students who were also doing the course, but I just wanted to stay in my zone, speak friendly greetings and move on. So do what works for you, as long as you don't offend anyone or step on anyone's toes unnecessarily. Then the third point for mindset is stay calm and teachable. They really want you to be able to be teachable. You don't have to do things exactly one way. You don't have to stick to your point. If they ask you to reconsider, please reconsider carefully your point that you've made. Reconsider the evidence that you might have given. If it's not quite suitable and you disagree, there's no shame disagreeing. Just say disagree with your own point. If you say, okay, I don't agree actually, I think actually what you're saying is right, or this aspect of what you're saying is right, and then you reason it and give your multiple points of evidence for that, then that's brilliant. That's what they want to see. They want to see you're flexible and you're someone they can teach. Please don't go there with the attitude that you know everything that they could possibly teach you already, because unfortunately you don't. Then fourthly, don't be afraid to break the rules. Be afraid of not being stretched enough to demonstrate your greatness at your subject. Some myths and rules that circle around can be largely not true and false. A myth is that you can't ask at the end of your interview your lecturer that you'd like to find out more about what they research. It can go down really well with some lecturers and not with others. So ask if you're interested, and only if you're interested, and if they don't have time, don't get offended and just move on. But really, be afraid of not being stretched enough to demonstrate your greatness at your subject. Please give good, basic, solid answers that answer the question. Then don't be afraid to stretch your answers to high levels of reasoning, all built on a logical chain, until of course they stop you. And to be honest, they're looking to see how far you can go. If they interject, if they insert more questions, they want to take you in a different direction, they want to guide you another turn like they would in a supervision, of course, go and follow. But just honestly keep talking until you've either exhausted all levels of reasoning, or until you've finished the question fully, or lastly until they stop you with another question. It's so important to be stretched and to come out of the interview thinking those questions are the hardest things I've ever heard, unless you've done incredible amounts of preparation, because they are almost certainly better at you at the subject and know more than you do, and they just want to see how far you can go, how far you excel at Cambridge. What can you think, your thinking cognitive ability, how far can you think at a higher level, how far can you think more and deeply in a way that is substantiated by facts about your subject. Then onto some final admin points for interviews. Keep reading until your interview. A professor said on one webinar I attended that one of her favourite questions to ask is, what are you reading currently? If you haven't read anything up until that point of the very day of that interview, it will look like you're not very passionate or interested at all, and that's not the impression we want to give off. Then keep December free, as that's when all Cambridge interviews tend to hold, sometimes a little late in late November perhaps, but keep December free. And ideally January, as you might be asked to come back for another interview if you're put in the pool. Then on to point 8. When it comes to decision time, make sure you're where you want to be when you open the decision email. I can remember being just outside the station, just getting on the bus when I got the decision email, texting my mum with my sister and my friend, and then I told them the news, and then first time it was good news, so that was wonderful. And I'm sure you will do well. Good luck. Open it where you're comfortable with your parents, with your school, with your teachers perhaps, with your friends. Just whenever that decision day is, make sure you open it where you're comfortable. So if you do cry, it's okay. If you are happy, you're with people that can celebrate. Or you can easily contact them to share the good news. Then for 9.9 for admin, I recommend using OneNote, because that's what I use, is with a full page for each of the steps. So the steps of choosing your course, college, admission assessment arrangement, your UCAS application, so including your personal statement and school reference, additional forms, so your My Cambridge application, written work, admission assessment, and interview. That's about 8 steps in total. And you may also want one for decision. That's the easiest part of the process, receiving an email, but still. And underneath each of those pages, I'd like to do sub-pages. So sub-pages that talk about what you did specifically to achieve your goal, to prepare for each of those sections of the application process. So under your interview preparation section, you might put a page on a mock interview which you did on the 15th of November, for example. What you read, what books you'll be reading for that interview, what books you have read for the interview, your reflections, what you want to highlight, what you want to bring out. If they ask you about your favourite book, what book you're going to say, take a little time to think about that book you want to talk about before you get there. Any key questions you might know, any questions you might have prepared, any bullet points. Don't script your answers fully that you're memorising, but do have guiding bullet points that are your script, I guess, that you flow off to speak about. But of course, remember to also be flexible and willing to move whatever direction the interviewer takes you, and the interviews take you in the real interview. Then, in addition, keep a log. Second admin point, keep a log of everything you've read or watched. I like to do this in Word, relevant to your course as a super-curricular. So you use a table, one column with the details of the book or film you've read, or maybe a YouTube video. A middle column for the summary of the reading or film. It's optional but can be extremely helpful come interview time. If you can't quite remember what was that point of the book, you remember the conclusion, the final denouement, but you can't remember how you got there. Like Das Schloss or Der Schloss ends with not the man never getting his true justice, never getting into the castle to see the Duke. That's by Kafka. You might remember that ending, you might not remember how he got there, and that summary is what that's useful for remembering the details. You don't have time necessarily, a day or 2 days of the interview, to go back and read the book. And then the third column, which is the most important, your reflections. So what about that book is what lots of Cambridge and Oxford professors like to say. What really means is, what arguments has the book made for, especially for a history book or a film? What arguments have they made against their own point? And what do you think about those arguments? Because Cambridge want you to be able to think critically and give an informed, reasoned opinion based on evidence. Even if it's not necessarily what you believe, but it's an informed evidence and judgment that you can give, that's brilliant. Finally, for step 10, remember that Cambridge want you to do well. They consider each application holistically and in detail, which might not be possible for the other universities you apply for. This is a precursor to the excellent way they treat their students. So take advantage of everything Cambridge gives you and has on offer in the application process. For example, please do go to the Application Webinar Sessions, which is perhaps the most helpful support that Cambridge offer. If you found this video useful, please drop some comments below. For example, if you want me to do an in-depth video on any aspect of the application, be it interviews, reflecting on your super-curriculars or on your personal statement, super-curriculars or personal statement writing, composition. If you've found this video useful and you want to hear more from me, please do subscribe. You're very welcome to. Please click the subscribe button down below. And lastly, if you found the video interesting, please give it a like. It really helps the algorithm. Thank you so much, and bye.